Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I am your host, Attorney Henry Warrenbein. Today on Gracefully Graying, I am very pleased to welcome as our guest Rusty Rosman as she discusses her new book, Two Envelopes What You Want Your Loved Ones to Know When You Die, which is very, very important. So, without further ado, let me welcome Rusty to Gracefully Graying.
Good morning, Henry. Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you. First of all, Rusty, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about your background?
Well, I've done everything. I've been a teacher, I'm a commercial real estate broker, and I've been honored by my community by being a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Tax Board, the Board of Review. I've been doing this for multiple years, and I'm an active volunteer in many organizations. And I wrote this book because it was in the back of my mind for years and years the differences that my personal family had when our mother died. And by differences, I'm not saying arguments, I'm saying different approach to the same thing.
Well, this is important, Rusty. The book, Two Envelopes, What You Want Your Loved Ones to Know When You Die. I have it here.
Thank
I've read it. It's a very important book for everyone. I don't care what your background is because it really covers so many issues in a very understandable way. So go on a little and tell us what prompted you to write your book.
What prompted me to write the book is removing chaos from grief. Because even though you know your loved one is ill, you know your loved one is close to end of life, you don't know how you feel until they die. And it hits you like five semis coming at you at once, like, oh my God, this is real and it's permanent. And it is an incredible feeling that comes over you. And then come the family and the relatives. You need to do this. I want you to do it this way. Well, we always did it this way. For my mother, I did this. And mom told me this. And that's when the chaos starts. And unfortunately, for many families, that begins World War III. And that's not what you want. Not at all. What you want when you die is for your loved ones to stay a family. And what my book does is help remove a lot of the chaos that comes because one child said, Mom told me this. Well, she never told me that, but Dad told me. Well, I didn't know that. And by writing it down and putting it in these two envelopes that I'll explain in a moment, you are using your voice telling your loved ones what you want and you want them to do. And nine times out of 10, they'll say, oh, that's what mom wanted. Oh, dad said to do. All right, we'll do it that way. And that removes the chaos because not everybody is an only child and everybody has their own opinion. And I have learned, particularly once you get into your 40s, we all get strong. You know, we're running our own families, our own business, we're taking care of ourselves. We know what to do. So when you get a bunch of people who know what to do, it could be chaos, and you don't want that.
That's
And
for
you
sure.
don't want that.
It's hard enough losing a loved one. What research did you do in writing your book, Rusty?
Well, I spent a lot of time talking to my siblings, and then I went visiting. I visited close to 3 dozen funeral directors, and I met with religious directors, multiple groups of religious directors. And the bottom line, the common thread through everything was chaos. It was all chaos and the fighting between siblings. I spoke to one gentleman who hasn't spoken to his brother in 12 years because they fought in the funeral director's office of what the father was going to wear when he was buried. And one brother wanted this, and the other brother wanted that. And the older one said, I'm the oldest. We're going to do what I want. And that's the way it's going to be. And that was the end of that. And that's the end of that family relationship. And that's not what you want. You
No.
work so hard as a parent to raise the kids that they all like each other, get along, and you know your children, you know who's going to fight with who, and you know all of that. But it breaks your heart to think your kids won't be a family afterwards. And that's the purpose of this book.
That's an important reason. How did you come up with the title Two Envelopes?
I'm glad you asked that. My mother, who knew she was quite ill, wrote to us and told me where to find the key to where it was locked up. And I said to her, that's great, Mom, but it's not fair for you just to tell me. I'm one of four. And I said, you have to tell everybody the same thing at the same time. So you're still there and that they won't argue with me because I was the kid who was local. Everybody else wasn't. And so we brought everybody together. We brought the out of towners in. And I do recommend this highly. We served lunch first because when you talk about difficult subjects, it's a whole lot easier on a full tummy. It really is. And I did put around 6 boxes of Kleenex. And my mother went through with my dad. They went through what was in that envelope and what they wanted and how they wanted it. And my mother never meant maybe. And we all knew that. And when the time came for me to take that key and unlock that drawer and take out her envelope, all of us knew what we were going to be doing. And we followed the directions that were in the envelope. But I broke it down to 2 envelopes because I want you to label the first envelope open immediately after I die, and the second one open immediately after the funeral. Because the first envelope you need ASAP. Now, these envelopes won't work for anybody if you don't tell your children where to find them. And it's totally up to you if you wish to share what's in the envelopes with the kids or not, with your loved ones or your funeral representative, because not everybody has family that they want to handle things. And I'm in the state of Michigan, and the state of Michigan does allow a funeral representative. So I strongly suggest that everybody check with legal advisor to see if a funeral representative is legal in your state. But it tells you, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Are you a blended family? Where do you want to be buried? With the first spouse, the second spouse? And believe me, that is a huge contention in families. And
Let me
I
digress. We're talking now about the purpose of envelope one, correct, Rusty?
number one. If you're a veteran, put your veteran papers in there so you can have your honors. It doesn't do any good if you find them 6 months later, and the funeral's already been. It'll break somebody's heart that your loved one didn't get their honors. Envelope number 2 is all the things that you wish your loved one was sitting next to you. Say, well, Mom, where do I find this? Well, Mom, what do I do with that? And what should I do about this? Perfect example. You have automatic refills on your medication. What credit card do you have it on? Who do you have it with? Your kids don't know. You take care of all of that. The same thing with your pet. Who's your vet? Who's going to take your pet after you die? Where do you store your passwords? That's huge. What is your password to get into the computer? All of these kind of things. Well, how do you get into your telephone? All of these things are important for your kids to know, and you're not there to answer. So that's the kind of thing you put in envelope number 2, along with, if you so choose, a letter to your loved ones. Because this is going to be your voice telling your family how much you love them, and they will treasure that. They'll treasure that always.
It's important. It's also got to be difficult. I mean, it sounds like there have to be some very difficult conversations with family members and learning about the purpose of envelope number 1, the purpose of envelope number 2, and just the letter to the loved one. And that's an envelope 2. So typically, how much information should be in each envelope? I mean, it seems like envelope number 1 can be relatively simple because you're just talking about burial and funeral and perhaps whether it's how the mourning period is to be handled. But envelope number 2 seems to be the one that's going to have most of the meat, for lack of a better word. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Rusty?
Well, in envelope number 1, the most important thing is that it is your choice. Do you want to be cremated or do you want to be buried? Have you made prearrangements? Your family may or may not know the answers to these things. So it's important you put that in envelope number 1. And if you've made prearrangements, where are they? And with so many kids not living near where their parents are, and how would they know? If your child lives in California, how do they know what you want? Because they're not there every day while you're talking about this, that, and the next thing. The most important thing for number 1, if you're a blended family, is to determine where do you want to be buried. I have heard hundreds of stories of kids fighting over where the person who died is buried because the first spouse had died and then they married the second spouse, but they lived together for 45 years. But they had already bought a plot with the first spouse that died. And where do you go? Where do you go? And the kids fight, and that's not what you want. So it's a conversation the two of you have to have. Envelope number 2, and I'll give you a perfect example. Assume that you're one of 4 kids, and there's a beautiful family heirloom that everybody knows doesn't have a lot of value, but you know it came from great grandma and grandma, and now your parents, and which kid gets it? Do you want them fighting over it? And it's a difficult, difficult thing, but put that on you. This way they're mad at you, not at each other. And I also said in the book, feel free to tell your children, if you don't want this, trade among yourselves, sell it, give it away, do what you want, give your family permission. And that's the other thing about taking away a lot of the guilt.
Now, the timing, it seems like envelope number 2, timing is not critical. I mean, it's important because people want to move on, and especially if people are coming in from out of state or other countries for a funeral. But envelope number 1 is urgent.
That's why I understand that. So I said, and I didn't give an envelope in my book on purpose, because everybody, either you want to write it, you want to type it, you have a lot, you have a little, you select the size envelope that works for you. And as time goes by, you may change the size because you want to put more things in it. But you mark number 1, open immediately, envelope number 1, open immediately after I die. And envelope number 2, open immediately after the funeral. And there's 2 things that you need to do. 1, tell all of your loved ones where to find the envelopes, because that's not any help if they can't. And number 2, know that what you are putting in your envelopes is not part of your will or your trust. That you do with an attorney. This is your personal thing. Your pet, your car, is it leased? Is it do you own it? Do you want it to go to a grandchild? Do you want them to sell it? It's those personal things that I'm talking about, like grandma's candlesticks, things like that. And the reason I say open immediately after the funeral is because everybody is still there, because a lot of people are going to go back where they came from. So it's important that they are part of it. And that's why I have it labeled like that.
Rusty, you made another good point, and that is these envelopes are not to replace a formal estate plan, whether it's a will and trust, a power of attorney, special instructions with regard to medical issues. So it's like this is conjoint. It goes hand in hand. And it seems to me that the envelope 2 should also be in a place where you can find someone's estate plan, last will and testament, any trust. So it seems that those should all be together. Would that be your opinion as well, Rusty?
No and yes, because think of it this way. As you get older and some people need help in the home, you really don't want to put your envelopes in a place where someone is going to say, oh, what's this? And open it up. You want to put it where only your loved ones will know where to look. A lot of people, and like my husband's a perfect example. He's always going into envelope number 2. Like he thought about this collection. Oh, I want to give this to this one. He just learned that through one of the airlines that when you die, you can assign your Sky Miles to a loved one. Oh, he didn't know that. So he went into envelope number 2 and said who he wanted to give it to. So he's always going into envelope number 2. But what you said first, Henry, is so important. This is not legal at all, at all. I have said throughout the book, check with your legal advisor, check with your financial advisor, but I'm not a lawyer and I am not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. That go to those people. And this does not, and right in the very beginning, this does not replace a will or a trust. This is what you said, Henry, hand in hand, but it's in your home and it's yours. And whatever you wish to say or do whenever you want to, you go into your envelopes and do so, because not everybody can sit down and fill them out all the first day. A lot of things you want to talk to your children about, you want to talk to your spouse about, you want to think about. And as circumstances go by, you may want to change a few things. So it's right there in your home.
You know, Rusty, it seems to me that these envelopes are really roadmaps. One is a short-term roadmap to be dealt with immediately on death, and the other is more of a long-term roadmap to be dealt after the funeral. By long-term, I mean it sets forth a lot of specific bequests. It helps avoid chaos. And it's really important. And what you've written in your book is very, very important. I want to move to another topic, and perhaps that's the most difficult one. We don't like to look at death. I mean, it's inevitable, but it's something that's hard to talk with. How difficult is it for families to discuss and deal with these issues that are set forth in envelopes 1 and 2?
The very most common thing, the most common thing I hear, I don't want to talk about it. You're never going to die. I love you too much. You're never going to die. And all of us know that isn't true, but it's very, very emotional. And so many people do not want to discuss it. And that's the time when you use your mama voice and your daddy voice that you did when they were 5 years old. And you use that voice that I know you don't want to talk about this, but I do. So sit down and I need you to listen because this is important to me. And unfortunately, and I go back to the 40-year-olds, they know everything. This is the time that we have to stand up and say, you have to listen to what I'm telling you here. I need to talk about this, and you need to listen. You love me. I know you do. And so you have to give me your attention to this. And here's a box of Kleenex. And you really have to do that. And I cried through mine. I could sit here and cry right now. My parents have been gone over 30 years, and I could sit here and cry. And I want my children who don't live where I live to be able to come and say, my mother loves me so much that she took care of making sure that this was easier for me than I anticipated. And that's what you're doing, is making it easier. And that's what you say to your loved ones. I know you don't want to talk about this, but this is going to make it easier for you. And I love you so much. I need you to listen so I can make it easier for you.
Rusty, what do you do? The children are scattered, which is more and more common. Do you set up a meeting via Zoom or by telephone? I mean, these are conversations that have to be had. I mean, how do you do some of the logistics?
Well, it's tough, but I would not do it by Zoom. I really would not. I would absolutely, and I did it myself when there was a family occasion and the kids were here. I said, I need 20 minutes of your time privately. And I want you to tell your spouse and your children that you're going to be talking to mom and dad privately for 20 minutes and keep themselves busy. But it was just the four of us. And we went into the room and we closed the door, Kleenex boxes, tissue boxes, and we talked about it. And we showed them where everything was located. And we didn't go through everything with them, but we told them where to find everything. And we don't need to leave certain things to our children. We've sold our business, but other people have a business that's still ongoing that they want to continue in the family. And a lot depends, like you run into cars. You run into the classic cars of who has what, who wants to give to what, to whom, and it gets to be something. But the point that I want to make over and over again, and the reason you don't have to go through each envelope with each kid, but tell them what's in it, that tells you what I want you to do with this, what with this, and we're not going to discuss what I chose today, but I want you to know that this is in this envelope, this is your voice. You're the one that earned the money. You're the one that protected everything all these years. You're the one that gets to choose what you want with your belongings. And that's where the contention starts. So I urge everyone, and I do in my book, think about it. Talk about it with your spouse if you wish to, and choose what you want to happen with your belongings. And it's not easy. It's not.
What do you do in a situation that's the reverse, where the parents are in denial and don't want to look at the eventuality, or maybe a parent suddenly is faced with an illness and is in denial? Do you have the children then having to take charge in those situations? I mean,
well, that comes back to, Mom, I know that you want what you want and how you want it. So we need to talk about this. And if Mom says, I don't care, do what you want, Mom told you. That was her voice. So yeah, kids need to take charge if the parent won't do it. Perfect example. I have a neighbor. The kids don't live here. She died. He's here all by himself. And he said to them, do what you want. You decide what you want to do and that's what we'll do. And they didn't live here. And so they worked with the funeral director and made choices, but they had no idea if that's what their mother wanted. And to this moment, because we talked the other day, he's still sad that he didn't know what she wanted, so it could be the way she wanted it. And you think about that, like, oh, do what you want. It's fine. I'll be dead. I don't care. But the people who are left do care. Some do, some don't. But it's absolutely worth thinking and talking about. It really is. And it's not fun. It's not fun at all. And you cry a lot. I do.
It's hard work. Absolutely. Now, you did a lot of legwork. You talked to a lot of funeral directors.
I did.
Different religions look at the ceremonies around death and dying from different perspectives. What are some of the takeaways that you found in talking to some of the directors of different religions?
I learned that cremation has more than doubled in the last 30 years. That used to be 30%. Now it's close to 70% of how many people are going for cremation. I learned that most people want the ashes divided among the different family members, which was a personal shock to me. But I heard of a story where it was so sad, where this gentleman, where his first wife had died, they had lived in this community, he had buried her and bought another plot for him. And many years later, several years later, he married a woman from another state. They lived together happily for many years, and he died. And the second wife was ready to bury him in her state. And the children from the first wife in another state said, absolutely not. He's going next to mom. And the children of the second wife said, absolutely not. You're going next to Marmont because she wants to be able to visit him. So Solomon came from above, and they decided they were going to cremate this gentleman and divide the ashes in half. So half of him is buried in one state and half of him is buried in another state. And I was shocked by that. And funeral directors looked at me and said, that's nothing. I just packaged up one man 5 times today. He's going to this state and this state and this state and that state. And I just couldn't believe that. But I also learned that people are working on emotion. They're not working on logic.
Sure.
Your father dies when you're in your 40s. You get the ashes in a box. You put it on your mantelpiece. You get older. You move. The box goes with you. And then you go into assisted living. Where does that box go? By now, the children of this gentleman, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they say, what am I supposed to do with grandpa? And eventually grandpa disappears. So the real question that funeral directors want people to answer is, what do you want to have done with your ashes? Plan for it. You can bury your ashes, and I can tell you I learned that there's state laws that can't scatter in the ocean and the lakes and the streams, and they don't want that. But people do what they want, but it's important to know what the laws are in your state. So it needs to be thought about. And it's not a fun something to think about, but it's you. You're in the box. So you really need to think, what do you want to have happen? Should you choose cremation? What do you want with your ashes? And one more thing that I learned is everybody says cremation is cheaper. I learned that the proper word is less expensive. But it's not necessarily cheaper, depending on what casket you choose, what you choose to for cremation, because you need a conveyance. You still need some kind of a box for the person to go to the crematorium. You're still paying for the transportation. You're still paying for the people. You're paying all kinds of things. It doesn't necessarily mean cheaper. It means less expensive, depending on what you do. I have learned you can buy a casket for as little as $500, $1,000. You can buy a casket for as much as $50,000. So a lot depends on what you choose. And that's the other thing for families. If you are a person who really cares that you want to be frugal, make your own arrangements. Do pre-arrangements, because all the funeral homes do pre-arrangements today. And you choose what you want and how much money you want spent on A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G, rather than your children, because that too becomes a fight. And boy, did I hear stories. funeral directors. I had one director point to 3 chairs, and he said there were 3 sisters sitting there, and you can almost see the 3 sisters as you're looking. And they had the biggest fight. He worried for the roof of his building. And what were they fighting about? They were fighting about how many death certificates to buy. And uh-huh. And I know, but people will fight about everything and anything because the emotions are so high. And it's truly chaos. And going back again, 2 envelopes helps eliminate chaos. And that's what you want. You want to eliminate chaos. You love your children. You want them to be a family after you're gone. And the work that you put in prior to when you can't think anymore clearly, it's so well worth it because you have a peace of mind. And I sadly have 2 girlfriends that did the 2 envelopes. I was at a funeral when the officiant said, everything you're going to see, hear, do, and eat today was decided by the person who died. And she said to me, I'm so satisfied. I got to plan it all. She also helped write her eulogy. She chose the picture she wanted for her obituary, and she chose everything she wanted, where she wanted the visitation to be. She chose everything, and she was so satisfied, and she was so sick. Henry, she was so sick, but it gave her something to do, and she was so satisfied. So I like to think that people who use 2 envelopes are very satisfied that they have done everything they can to ensure that their family knows what they want, does what they want, and continues to be a family even when they're gone.
Well said. You know, it brings memories of my father who was cremated, and my parents used to spend many, many winters in Coronado off of San Diego, and his ashes were scattered in the Pacific by my uncle and I believe Riva, my stepmother. So again, this was what they wanted, and which is fine. You know, we're running out of time. I'd like to know what you want your readers to take away from your important book, number 1, and number 2, where can someone obtain 2 envelopes?
What I want them to take away is this is your voice, your choice, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be your money that's being spent on the funeral. So it should be your voice. And it's all done out of your love for your loved ones. And that's the other thing is write a letter to your loved ones and include it in envelope number 2. To answer where you can buy my book, you can buy it on Amazon.com, you can buy it on BarnesandNoble.com, and you can buy it on Walmart.com. And Rusty Rosman is spelled with 1 S in Rosman, and 2 envelopes is spelled TWO envelopes. So I thank you so much, Henry, for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about 2 envelopes. And I wish all of your listeners peace of mind, because that's really what this book gives you.
Rusty Rosman, thank you so much for being our guest on Gracefully Graying. I want to thank our viewers for watching Gracefully Graying, and of course our sponsors for making Gracefully Graying possible. And again, Rusty Rosman, author of 2 Envelopes, What You Want Your Loved Ones to Know When You Die. Thank you so much.